This is an ancient story born in the lands of Persia, where gardens were not tended only with water, but with the heart. It is said that there was a garden many people visited, but few ever saw in bloom. Some called it a miracle, others an illusion. Yet those who managed to witness its beauty knew an unsettling truth. Life reveals its loveliness only when fear no longer governs. This story speaks of trust, of doubt, and of what happens when someone dares to draw near without fear. In a dusty village at the edge of the desert lived Samir, a simple man with calloused hands and a tired gaze. He was not extremely poor, but neither did he live in abundance. Each day he worked just enough to sustain his home. Since childhood, he had heard stories about the garden hidden behind an old stone wall, a place that, according to legend, only blossomed for those who approached it with complete trust. Samir listened to these stories with interest, but always from a distance, like someone who observes without daring to step closer. The village was divided in opinion. Some claimed to have seen impossible flowers bloom before their eyes. Others insisted it was all a deception for the naive. "The garden isn't real," the cautious ones repeated. "And even if it were, it's not worth the risk." Samir heard every comment as the dust of the road rose beneath his sandals. Inside him lived two voices, one that longed to discover the truth, and another that urged him not to expose himself to disappointment. One afternoon, after an exhausting day, Samir passed by the wall. The place looked dry, silent, almost abandoned. There were no flowers, no colors, no signs of life. "See?" murmured a neighbor walking beside him. "Nothing special." Samir nodded, but something stirred in his chest. He felt a strange pull, as if the garden were not empty, but waiting. He took a step forward, and then stepped back. Doubt was stronger than the impulse. That night, Samir could not sleep. The desert wind struck the walls of his house, and in his mind the image of the garden returned again and again. He thought of how many times he had avoided decisions out of fear of being wrong. What if the beauty never appears because I never fully approach? He asked himself in silence. At dawn, with an unsettled heart, he made a decision that seemed small, but would begin to change everything. As the sun rose, Samir walked toward the wall with slow but determined steps. He carried no tools or offerings, only his presence. The air was dry, and the ground cracked. When he arrived, he placed his hand on the cold stone and waited. Nothing happened. The silence grew uncomfortable. His mind began to fill with thoughts. Maybe it's just a myth. Perhaps I'm wasting my time. He took a step back, and in that moment, the garden remained the same. Over the following days, he returned several times, always cautiously, always measuring every step. The result was always the same: dull earth, dry leaves, no color. The neighbors began to notice his persistence. "You're still at that?" they said with irony. "If it didn't bloom before, it won't bloom now." Samir smiled, but inside him the doubt grew. Perhaps he was not worthy. Perhaps the story was only a comfort for dreamers. One morning, as he looked over the parched ground, he understood something uncomfortable. Every time he approached, he did so expecting a sign, a proof, a guarantee, never with total surrender. He realized that his body was present, but his heart remained guarded. "I don't trust. I only verify," he thought. That realization unsettled him more than the dryness of the garden. Perhaps the problem was not in the soil, but in the way he approached it. That afternoon, he decided to return once more, but differently. Not to observe, but to remain. He sat before the wall without expectations, without demands. He took a deep breath and allowed the silence to surround him. For the first time, he did not seek results. He simply stayed. The wind blew softly. Nothing bloomed yet, but something changed within him. The urgency dissolved and was replaced by an unfamiliar calm. When Samir stood to leave, he noticed an almost imperceptible detail. Between the cracks in the ground, a small green leaf was timidly emerging. It was not an obvious miracle, nor a grand spectacle. It was fragile, real. Samir smiled without haste. He did not shout. He did not call anyone. He understood that the garden did not respond to hurry or distrust, but to a sincere presence that demands no proof. From that day on, Samir began to visit the garden without telling anyone. He did not go to check whether there were more leaves or to count new shoots. He went because something in that place brought him stillness. Each visit was quiet. The ground remained mostly dry, but here and there small signs of life appeared. Nothing spectacular, nothing immediate. The garden seemed to respond with the same delicacy with which Samir was learning to approach. The village, noticing his prolonged absences, began to whisper. "He's getting carried away," some said. "That garden will make him waste his time." Others mocked him with gentle pretense. Samir listened, but no longer argued. Something within him had changed. For the first time, he felt no need to convince anyone, not even himself. He had learned that not everything blooms under the gaze of others. One afternoon, as he rested beside the wall, an old doubt returned with force. What if all of this leads to nothing? He thought. The fear of being mistaken passed through him like a shadow. At that moment, the wind lifted dust and covered part of the garden. Samir was about to leave. It was the exact moment when he always turned back, the point where trust usually breaks. But this time he did something different. He remained. He accepted the discomfort, the uncertainty, and the silence. He did not try to interpret signs or search for explanations. He simply stayed. That was when he noticed that beneath the layer of dust, the green was more widespread than he had seen before. It had not appeared suddenly. It had been growing slowly, unnoticed, while he was learning not to flee. Samir understood that the garden was not being tested by him, but that he himself was being transformed. Each doubt he released allowed a new shoot to emerge. Each moment of surrender opened a wider space. The flowering was not a reward, but a consequence. And for the first time, he understood that trusting was not about expecting results, but about remaining even when nothing seems to change. As the weeks passed, the garden began to show more visible changes. Small flowers emerged in areas where there had once been only cracks. Samir saw them, but no longer with surprise, rather with respect. Yet something unexpected happened. The rumors grew. Some neighbors claimed that Samir was hiding something, that he had discovered a trick or a secret advantage. The village's curiosity slowly turned into unease. One day, several villagers decided to follow him. They approached the garden with expectation, carefully observing every corner. But before their eyes, the place once again appeared dull, almost barren. There were no flowers, no colors, no signs of life. "This is what you've been defending?" they asked with disdain. Samir looked at them without explanation. He understood that the garden did not open itself to anxious observation, but to a trusting presence. The pressure increased. Some accused him of lying, others of wasting his time. There were even those who advised him to leave that place behind and return to the familiar routine. For the first time, Samir felt the true weight of his choice. It was no longer just an inner doubt. It was now a rupture with the gaze of the village. He knew that if he walked away, nothing would grow again. And if he stayed, he would do so alone. That night, the sky filled with clouds, and an unexpected storm fell over the village. The wind struck the wall, and the rain dragged soil and dry leaves across the ground. At dawn, the garden looked devastated. Samir arrived and felt a knot in his chest. Everything that had grown seemed lost. For a moment, he thought his trust had been in vain. This was his most difficult moment. Standing beneath the still gray sky, Samir had to make a silent decision. He could leave, convince himself that everything had been an illusion, or he could stay, even without signs, even without flowers. He chose to remain. He sat on the wet ground, accepting the loss without resentment. In that moment, something changed definitively. He was no longer trusting in order to see the garden bloom. He was trusting even if it did not bloom. When the sun began to break through the clouds, Samir sensed a gentle fragrance in the air. It did not come from the wind or from the village. It rose from the soil itself. As he lifted his gaze, he saw the garden slowly awaken with a serene strength. Flowers he had never seen before emerged from the damp earth, deep and vibrant colors, as if the storm had not destroyed anything, but had instead prepared the ground. The garden was blooming more than ever. Samir then understood that the decisive moment had not been when the first leaves appeared, but when he chose to stay without guarantees. The garden did not bloom because he expected it to, but because he stopped demanding. It did not respond to observation or to testing, but to complete surrender. The storm was not punishment, but the final lesson. True beauty is not born from control, but from full trust. In time, some neighbors returned. This time without mockery, but also without certainty. Some managed to see small flowers. Others saw nothing at all. Samir never explained the secret. He only said a simple phrase. It's not about looking, but about how you stay. The garden remained the same, but each person encountered a different version of it. Not because the place changed, but because not everyone approached it in the same way. Samir continued with his life as he always had. Working, walking slowly, listening more than he spoke. The garden never became an attraction or a promise. It remained a silent space where haste had no entry. And although it did not always bloom with the same intensity, Samir no longer measured it by results. He had learned that trust does not seek visible rewards. So it is in life as well. Many times, beauty does not reveal itself because we approach with fear, calculation, or demand. Life shows its splendor when we stop doubting and remain, even when nothing seems to change. For what blossoms from trust is not always seen immediately, but it forever transforms the one who dares to stay.